Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Welcome back to the Week in Italian Startup, where we bring you the latest updates and exciting developments in the world of technology and startup in Italy. How are you, Nick?
I'm great, thank you, Jack. Good morning, how are you?
Very good, very good. So, in today's conversation, we have a lineup of intriguing news stories featuring unique players, I would say, in Italy, in the tech investing space that, we occasionally see, participations holding, different, players in the field. And corporate VC, which apparently, again, is getting traction and becoming, pretty interesting. So, let's dive right in, I would say. So, our first story features, let's go. Our first story features Develhope, an innovative edtech startup. So, first of all, of course, a shout out to Max Costa, one of the Develhope founders, friend of both of us. So definitely a great job in securing, and I would think an impressive 6 million in funding. Which, given the current market situation, is actually pretty tough. So definitely kudos to them. And let's remind how exactly the fundraise evolved. So basically, they already raised 2 million a few months ago, and now they're they shoot for 6. So very nice progression. And despite everything, these guys are on fire.
Yeah, agreed. So he's very good, Max. If you know him, he's very good. The Develhope is operating in the market of developer training, let's say so, and he's doing that from an unusual geography, from the southern part of Italy. So we don't see so many startups raising capital in southern Italy. He's based out of Palermo, Sicily, beautiful place, and he's building this very nice story of a startup focusing on underserved geographies to support the education and training of professional developers. So very nice proposition. And you can tell this proposition is not just business, but it's about creating and sustaining an economy and creating jobs and so on and so forth. From the investors, CDP VC is the lead, but
100%.
The investors
Yes.
are Opes and Sefea SGR. And both of them are actually impact investors.
Yeah, I would mention maybe a few information about those. So first of all, CDP has a very interesting fund promoting tech companies in the south of Italy with their headquarters in the south. So that's it probably is wider than that. So it's not only tech company; it's mostly basically helping to develop entrepreneur which are operating in the south of Italy, which typically is a region sort of positioned in the tourism space, but not really in the tech and business space. So that's definitely a great support from CDP. And secondly, what I would mention is definitely, as you say, Opes Italia, which is a CCAF, which is an Italian vehicle essentially for venture capital, focused on impact investing. Right now, I think they have 4 portfolio companies, and they're growing this business. So that's very interesting. On the other note, of course, Sefea Impact, with 11 million of investment already deployed, I think they declared that they want to invest a total of 17 roughly, and essentially this is an SGR. Which is, of course, an Italian entity to basically managing funds, and they work on alternative funds. So a little bit bigger, but definitely very well oriented into the impact investing space.
Yeah, Opes actually has been quite active lately. This is the second investment they announced in a matter of weeks. The first one was Freedomy a couple of weeks ago. So picking up pace despite investment. Awesome. The other are fearful, right?
Yeah. And that's cool because we are seeing these entities that are playing certain role in the cross section between VC impact and social development. So it's not as common in different ecosystems to have this player. So I'm thinking that this is pretty unique of the Italian ecosystem, compared to other ecosystems. So that's pretty cool. All right. So yeah, moving on. Let's talk about Crono, sales tech startup raising $500,000 in a funding led by SFC Capital and Aticco Ventures. So first of all, let's talk about the platform. So this is very interesting because this is a platform that essentially does something extremely useful across the border, and a few huge companies in the world are playing in that field, which is like a sales management, sales pipeline management of some sort. So these guys are trying to really like pull together a lot of like entry point, elaborate them, and support like sales team to actually follow up with customer, close new clients, and basically doing something that is typically hard for any sort of business. So very useful proposition. Of course, like playing against some of the big guys in the world, like Salesforce and so on. So definitely very, very ambitious. And yeah, I mean, super cool, because actually another interesting element is that these guys started working with Startup Geeks, which is one of the sort of most known Italian very early stage pre-seed, pre-revenue, everything accelerator. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, they're showing like some interesting results.
Yep. If I may add a few points, so the guys are all Italian, but they incorporated in the UK, and the investors, as you said, are a couple of well, let's say angel groups in a sense. I mean, one is SFC Capital, that's a SaaS enabled angel club from the UK, and that is Aticco, and it's a kind of, from the website, a kind of a weird thing between investment, workspace, services from Spain.
Yes,
so
yes.
International roster we have there.
Yeah, absolutely right. And those are the big one. And surprisingly, they're non-Italian, but definitely, great job in sort of tapping into the European capital. So yeah, what is interesting is that SFC is like they focus on seed in general, based in UK, and yeah, with the SACE scheme, which is essentially like an investment seed enterprise investment scheme. Just to like clarify these like certain incentives the government activate for investor to have like major benefits in investing in startup. And the idea of this scheme is really to stimulate the ecosystem. So Italy has their own schemes. UK is, I would say, a little bit more advanced. And yeah, those kind of schemes are very like powerful in the sense that, essentially there is no capital gain. There is like a 50% deduction in taxes, loss relief. So you essentially you can offset your losses in case the startup doesn't go well on your taxes. And then there is no inheritance taxes. So UK is pretty advanced and pretty like articulate in elaborating the scheme. So that's pretty cool. Moving to Aticco, it's exactly right what you were saying. It's essentially like an angel group based in Spain, and they do seems like club deals, and they work in early stage and seed investment. So very, very interesting as well.
Yeah, I like this idea of putting together investment community spaces, lab workspaces. So this is kind of an interesting mix. So I wonder whether there will be some Italian player. I'm thinking about Talent Garden doing something similar, because they have the community.
Good point. Very
something
interesting.
will happen. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas.
All right, let's turn our attention to IREN, an Italian company making stride in the circular economy sector. So IREN, big utility player in the Italian ecosystem. They recently acquired a significant majority stake of 88% in ReMat, which is essentially pioneering the reuse of expanded polyurethane from the automotive manufacturing. So it's very specific in the sense that I think that kind of signal the scale of the automotive industry. So a startup can actually, grow out of like one specific like recycle, reuse elements of the automotive supply chain. So that's pretty interesting. So essentially, from what I understand, ReMat basically has developed a process so they can take the polyurethane, which is not used, basically the waste from what has been used in the car industry, recondition it in a way that is as usable as almost the new polyurethane. So that's very interesting because essentially this plays into IREN's strategy to be one of the major player of circular economy in general.
And I believe there is quite a bit of money on the table. I was reading from the article that in Italy every year people throw away, basically to change 5 million mattresses.
Wow.
If you're able to pick them up for pennies on the dollar and you convert them into new stuff, new mattresses, for example, I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and this is a majority acquisition. The majority was basically priced at 3.5 million. I would say yes, exactly 3.5. So it's a sort of an exit strategy for startup that are willing to actually play with corporate, and that's perfectly legitimate way to actually bringing values and building businesses when big corporations are actually integrating part of the product or service into their chain. So that's an underlooked element because everybody looks at unicorns, but people could be perfectly happy with this kind of integration. So I thought it was interesting. All right, so shifting gears, let's talk about some new holding companies. Well, not new, but very active, I would say, holding company making moves in the startup ecosystem. So RedFish Long-Term Capital, Italian company, basically has been working on their company pipeline, but not only that, they intend to go public with an IPO on the Euronext Growth Milano. So essentially what is interesting is that so the value of the company would be between 22 and 25 million. And essentially RedFish has been working in a very interesting way, basically acquiring businesses and then doing crowdfunding campaign to grow the holding company. So the crowdfunding campaign is done on the holding company, and RedFish has a very strategic and precise way to grow the business. And reading into the website, I think we can identify a few points. But first, I want to see, Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
No, the story of RedFish is interesting because basically they funded the company through a few rounds of crowdfunding, and that's they're probably one of the pioneers of raising capital to fund an investment vehicle on crowdfunding platforms. They made 3 rounds of fundraising, and the last one dates back to 2021-ish, so 1 or 2 years, and the valuation of the company back then was around 11-12 million. So this IPO strategy pricing is doubling the value of the company since the last crowdfunding campaign. So it seems that there might be so it might have been an interesting investment for the people participating in the crowdfunding campaign.
And so let's talk about the strategy for a moment. So it's sort of a mini private equity sort of strategy angle. So basically, let me give a few pointers. So they specialize in investing in family-owned businesses that operate into a niche industry, particular, with an EBITDA of more than 2 million euro. So extremely specific, extremely Italian flavored. So of course, Italy is full of family businesses and a lot of them are really profitable. What they're trying to do is really target those. And what they want to do is really hold some minority equity. They leave control to the owner, the former owner of the business. But what they do is they support the growth of the company with an industrial plan. So essentially, they want to be minority active investors that actually can support the company in a significant way. What is interesting is also the sort of the compensation scheme that they declare, which essentially is a mix of fixed and variable fees, advisory fee, and on top of that, they take part of the yearly distributions, if any, and on the range of about like 20%. So it's a very interesting model because it has like a lot of moving parts. The old management stays and lead the way, but at the same time, the network effect of like an investment holding can really be leveraged to grow like a business way beyond, the usual like business development like mechanism that like a smaller company can actually have. So that's pretty powerful, I would say. And Nick, I think there is also a very interesting element, which if you check the ownership of RedFish, a substantive, a pretty substantive like shareholder is our friend Banca Sabina. So these guys are really.
Are you surprised?
I just keep getting surprised. Because these guys are like good. They are everywhere, and in interesting like angles, you find them in a way or another. So shout out to the people. One day we'll have some people on the podcast, and then we're gonna have fun with what they're doing and what's the strategy for that for the future.
Yeah. I'd be very curious.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's. I would say. Let's end up talking about Stellantis. So Stellantis, very interesting play. So Stellantis Ventures, an investment arm of the automotive giant Stellantis, has been actively investing in mobility startups. So they just basically announced that they have invested in 10 to 11 promising ventures into the mobility space. So what is interesting is that they've been extremely active in the past 2 years. The announcement of the not even 2 years. So the official start of the venture capital arm was March 2022, and ever since they've been really moving fast. So essentially, Stellantis Ventures is basically a product of what they call their Forward 2030 plan, which is the industrial plan that Stellantis as a company has to actually move the company from now to a sustainable car manufacturer, next generation company. And basically the allocation of capital was about 300 million. And what is interesting is also that there are a lot of Italians representing into the board or the investment committee. So it's a very interesting entity. And apparently is working really well across different verticals, which can be strategic, which can be more or less strategic for the automotive sector.
I found very interesting the quotes from the Stellantis CTO, the Stellantis Group CTO, who say, transforming Stellantis into a mobility tech company means we need to have the mindset of a startup, focus on our customers and working with their shopping patients. And that's interesting considering the roots of Stellantis. I mean, it's probably more, I don't know, close to 100 years old, I don't know. So quite big. Its roots are in the Fiat company. So basically, it's a huge car manufacturing company who's saying, hey, we want to become a mobility tech company. And they're actually investing. So walking the walk, if you want. Not a huge amount of money considering the size. So 300 million, not a huge amount of money, but they're beginning to walk the walk.
Yeah. So, and just a few more information on the strategy. I think they're really forward-looking because essentially, reading some materials when it talks to actually the investment thesis, they really want to focus on identifying businesses that exhibit robust and sustainable growth potential, but also a high level of integration in Stellantis processes. So it's not just let's try something early stage and let's try to actually integrate to the value chain of the company, but it's actually let's find something that is both that can be integrated in the company, but also has its own life of growth and scalability. So I mean, just few words, but very powerful and very well positioned. So very sort of a very sophisticated way of thinking about a venture strategy for a corporation, for such a big corporation.
Jack, before closing, what's your thought about how will it go, the SPAC merger between Supermoney and the VAM SPAC? What's your opinion?
Okay. So the only thing I can tell you, and not an expert on SPAC, is that the market is very like chilled on the SPAC part. So after the big hype of a few years ago, where everybody's trying to go SPAC in some way or another, it's kind of, I don't like this year. I see it as an outlier, to be honest. Like we haven't heard much about SPAC, and now SPAC comes up. So I don't know, honestly. I don't know. Is it the time when like a lot of noise kind of got cancelled, so SPAC might actually work, and the ones that are coming up are actually legitimate, or it's like a tale of a bigger, like noisy, like trend that we saw in the past years. So I don't know where it is right now. What's your thinking on that?
Well, I have two comments. I'm really amused by the SPAC market. It was fun to look at, and I have two comments. So the first comment is, remember, SPACs are only open for business before merging for 2 years, and this one was launched in July 2021. Number one, VAM Investment is already a shareholder in Supermoney. Number two, and amusingly, the stock price of the SPAC has been trading below 10 for quite some time, and is, touching 10 euros. It has been touching 10 euros in the last few days. So 10 euros is basically the line, because the SPAC goes public at 10 euros per share, or $10 per share, depending on the stock exchange. And I'm really curious about the redemption mechanism. So in that moment, you will have pulse the feeling of the market to see how they think. The market will ask for their money back, or they will bet on Supermoney with VAM SPAC. With Supermoney, from the numbers, it looks like a very good company. So they have a very good business. Yeah. I'm really curious. So very good business against the current market dynamics. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Nice. So we definitely need to keep an eye on that, and in a few weeks, let's see what actually happened and how actually the stock price moves and all the reaction of the market. That's super interesting for sure. All right, so that concludes today's episode of the Week in Italian Startup. We hope you enjoyed this roundup of the latest startup news. Make sure to tune in next time, and until then, stay curious and keep exploring.